Good?
Go.
Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to Amtgard Arts Academy. Tonight I'm Kiana, and I'm going to be doing a baking class today. Hooray! Because everyone loves goodies. I'm from the Northern Empire, so up in Canada. Hooray! Alright, so tonight what we're going to be doing is we're going to be baking some chocolate cupcakes. And then I'm going to teach you how to up your game a little bit and just like be a little bit more creative with your presentation, and this will help you with your judging when you're entering it in for judging for CQs or anything of the like. All right, so first step, I'm just going to share my just going to try and share here the recipe that I'm going to be using for the chocolate cupcakes. And I wanted to talk a little bit about baking in general. So unlike cooking, baking is kind of a science. So cooking is more of an art form. You can, if you mess up, you can just go with it, and you know, whatever happens, happens. Sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's not so awesome. With baking, it's a little bit more precise. There are like fundamentals and like basics that you need to follow. For instance, with cakes, you need flour, you need some sort of fat shortening, and you need eggs and milk, and that's your basic for a cake. If you kind of deviate from that, it's not really going to turn out right. However, there are things that you can do to substitutions, for instance. So if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you don't need to use eggs. There are substitutions for that. And I don't know if some of you follow BuzzFeed on Facebook, but they have an excellent bunch of charts that I've found where you can use substitutions for food allergies, such as gluten-free stuff. For instance, gluten-free flour is not actually cup per cup, which sounds really weird, but the reason that I'm saying this is because I'm gluten intolerant, so that's what I'm going to be baking with today, is gluten-free flour. So anyway, gluten-free flour, you have to actually weigh it out. And so it's 1 cup of gluten-free flour, 1 cup of flour equals about 140 grams. But that's not necessarily 1 cup of gluten-free flour because the densities are different. So instead of measuring your gluten-free flour via cup, you need to measure it via weight because there are different weights. So there. That being said, all right. Next is the steps to baking. So what you want to do is when you're using a flour or a dough, you want to sift your dry ingredients together, and that would be things like your flour, which I have here in a bowl. We're going to be adding cocoa powder. This recipe calls for baking soda and baking powder. Now, hopefully, Amber can share or add it into the video. I'm not sure if that's going to show up in the video as what I've shared.
Oh, the links? No, they won't show up in the video later, but we can post them, links to them when I post the video.
Cool. All right, so we'll post the links to the video, the links that I've sent with the video. So baking soda, baking powder, unsweetened cocoa powder, so that's just pure cocoa powder, flour, salt, a pinch of salt there. All right, so now sugar, yes, sugar is dry. However, you don't add your sugar to your dry ingredients. You mix that with your butter. Which sounds really funny, but if you think about it, you can actually substitute sugar with honey or other sweet things. It's just you're going to have to lessen how much wet ingredients you put in. But yeah, so technically sugar is a wet ingredient, always, forever. Alright, so you're just going to mix your dry ingredients together, get them kind of blended together. Sorry if I go off screen here, I'm working off of a laptop. That doesn't really blend well to baking, showing you what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to kind of, let's see here, So you mix your dry ingredients together. So that's the flour, the cocoa powder, the salt, the baking soda, and the baking powder. So you mix that together and you set that aside. Sifting will help make it nice and silky smooth and get rid of any lumps or clumps or anything like that, so that when you're mixing the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients, it'll be a nice smooth batter. Alright, so now for the wet ingredients. Alright, so the wet ingredients include butter or margarine. For vegetarians, you can use margarine instead of butter, or even lactose-free people, you can use margarine. Always softened, so it's easier to mix. So you're going to add this into a large bowl, because then you're going to add your dry ingredients to this. Alright, so what you first do is you add your margarine or butter and your sugar. And then you're going to cream that together so it's kind of, you basically just wet your sugar so it's nice and creamy. This takes a little bit of work, especially if you have cold butter or cold margarine, and this is why you want it to be warm. So it's going to start looking kind of crumbly. You want it to get it nice and smooth, alright? I don't know if you can see that there. So it's kind of crumbly right now. You want it to be smooth, not crumbly. Cream, right? So basically, when all the butter chunks kind of blend with the sugar, and it looks kind of, well, pillowy, I guess, almost like snow, and you're good to go. On to the next step, which is adding your eggs. Okay, so, right, setting that aside. All right, so when you're baking, it's actually a really good idea to take your eggs out in advance so that you have not really warm eggs, but not cold. This helps the eggs blend with the batter better, and you get it helps with the leavening and the thickening process. So instead of getting like a chunky or a thick dense cake, you'll have more fluffy, light cake. So these aren't necessarily cold, but they're not necessarily warm either. I took them out about like half an hour ago. So now you want to add your eggs one at a time and make sure that they're mixed together really, really evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and add 1 egg right now. So this recipe calls for 2 eggs. So again, you add 1 egg at a time, and you want to make sure that it's nice and blended in. I'm using a whisk here. It just helps add air to the batter, which will make my cake fluffier. I don't know if you can see that. So you want to make sure that it's nicely mixed in there. And then I'm going to add my 2nd egg. And again, you're going to want to make sure that you blend it really nicely. So it's important to make sure that your eggs and sugar and stuff are all nicely blended at this stage, because when you add your flour and you start mixing, you don't want to overmix, because that's what makes a really tough cake. And I don't know if you've ever bitten into a cake and it was almost like a brick. This helps make the cake nice and light and fluffy, at the same time having all your ingredients blended nice and evenly. Alright, so at this stage we're going to add the vanilla and mix that in as well. There is milk in this recipe. We add that actually with the flour. Alright, so that is nice and creamy. Look at that. Okay. Alright. So you want to add the flour slowly. I'm mixing this by hand. If you have a hand mixer, that works too. Short bursts at first, and then do it for about 2 minutes. Nothing more, because then it'll be too tough. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this and mix as I go. Right, I'm going to switch to my spatula here. Right. So when you're adding your flour, after you've beaten your eggs and your cream and your milk together and your sugar, it's going to be nice and light and airy. And to keep that light and airiness, you want to fold in your flour if you're doing this by hand. So it's just kind of a gentle motion, and this helps keep the air in your batter without overworking your batter. So you just gentle folding motions, and it'll come together. It'll. I'm just going to add the rest of this here. Right. So it's going to start to get a bit thicker now, and this is when we're going to start to add our milk slowly as well. Again, because you don't want to overwork it, and also you want to keep an eye on how moist it is. Unlike a cookie dough, this is going to be a bit more runny, because it's a cake batter. So there. So again, mine might be a bit stickier than what your batter is going to look like, because I'm using gluten-free flour. So there's like rice flour and like xanthan gum in here. So it's going to be really sticky. Again, gentle folding motions. All right, I'm just going to quickly mix it together here. If you do end up with lumps, it's no big deal. They tend to melt out of your batter anyway, so again, the sifting is just to help prevent the clumping, but I mean, nothing's perfect, right? Alright, so I have my batter here, a nice smooth silky batter. Alright. Alright, so we're going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees. Something's in there. Okay. Alright. So, even though I'm using paper liners, I still like to spray a little bit of Pam, or you can use butter or whatever you want to use. I don't know if some people don't like using Pam. But this helps in case the muffins overflow and go over the paper. It'll help prevent it from sticking to the pan on the outside. It also just makes it easier to pull the muffins out afterwards. Just a light spray. Alright. And your paper liners. So one thing to note about when you're baking, you don't want to overcrowd your oven with pans. I know that sometimes when you're in a rush, you want to put like 4 or 5 pans in there. Try not to put more than 2 pans, and never put them on top of each other. If you want to do one pan on the top and one pan on the bottom, alternate where they are so that one pan is never on top of the other. If you do this, you're going to have a different... In the oven, the heat won't flow as well, and the cake won't get, or your baking won't get to the proper temperature, which will cause things like a lighter cake color or darker or burnt parts of your pan. But if you notice that part of your pan or part of your cake is burnt, like half of it on one side, that's probably because your pan touched the side of the oven or another pan. If that happens, the pan actually gets a lot hotter than it should, and so it'll cook that part of the cake more. So try to avoid overfilling your oven. I know sometimes when you're in a rush, you gotta stick them all in there, but just give them enough room that they'll be able to breathe. So it's important to start putting your cake batter into the muffin tins as soon as you can, because if you wait too long, then your cake batter will actually start to carbonate, which is how the cake batter rises. So you'll actually get a flat cake, and that's how your cake falls. So I like to use something to help me portion out my cake. Ice cream scoops work really, really well. 1 ice cream scoop per cake cup, and you're good to go. I'm just gonna pour them into the cake cups here. And you want to go about 2/3, halfway to 2/3 full of a cup, cake cup. Your paper cups. If you go any more than that, you're probably going to start getting muffins where the cake will rise over the cup, rise over the paper. For cupcakes, it's really nice to have your cupcakes inside the paper so that when you do your icing, you can get a really nice, even icing on it. So that's all I have room for. Set this in the fridge. And my oven is nice and ready. So I'm going to pop this on the middle rack for about 15 to 20 minutes. Basically, check it on it in 15 minutes and stick a toothpick in it. And if the toothpick comes out clean, then it is good to go. Some ovens are different in temperature, so I'm not going to be too worrisome about that, but definitely no more than 20 minutes. 20 minutes, you're probably going to bake the cake. So, just going to tidy up my kitchen here a little bit. Alright, so now on to the icing. And I'm just using a vanilla buttercream icing. It's from Betty Crocker, so. Except this one here, I'm going to be adding green dye to, because I'm going to show you how to spruce up your presentations, like I said before, for coronation, crown qualifications, or Dragon Masters, or any arts and science tournament that you do. Right. Right. Do. So it's important to note that icing sugar can actually go stale. So using fresh icing sugar, or using up all your icing sugar, use your icing sugar as fast as you can. Pretty much. That's what I'm trying. So making your own ice, I'm going to make my own icing here. It's actually fairly easy. Most icing you can do with butter, the confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar, or icing sugar. They're all the same thing. Vanilla and margarine, I think, and cream. Cream or milk, doesn't matter. Right, so for buttercream, you want to use a lot of butter or margarine. In this case, I'm using margarine. Butter will probably make it taste better, but I like to bake with margarine for some weird reason. It's always soft. That's pretty much why I use it. So if you want to do something like, I don't know, last minute, or just really quickly, then use margarine because it's pretty much always soft. I'm using a margarine that has a low sodium or salt-free margarine. And lots of powder. So with icing, it's not really that big of a deal on the measurements because if it's too runny, just add more icing sugar. If it's too stiff, add a little bit of milk or water. And you'll be good to go. Splash of milk. So for this cupcake, we're actually going to be using a fairly stiff frosting. Add my food coloring. Oh, here it is. Right. So, with food coloring, you only need to add like a few drops. So, 3 or 4 drops should be about good. Added a few more because I want a nice bright green. Likewise, just getting plain vanilla frosting from the store works too, but I like to make my own. Right. Check on these here. Well, those are rising nicely. I should be done shortly. No, 5 minutes or so. When you're baking, it's important to remember that you want to take them out just before you think they're done. For instance, cookies, or more importantly, because they'll continue to cook when you leave them in the tray to cool before you take them out to rest. And even as they're resting, they'll continue to cook. The internal temperature will change the chemistry of your baking ingredients. So, yes, so it's important to remember with cookies, you only want a nice light golden brown. Same with cakes, like vanilla cakes, for instance. I'm putting the icing in the fridge to set up because when you work it, it actually gets smoother and softer, and you want it to be firm so that when you ice your cupcakes, they'll be nice and iced. So now is on to the fun part. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making Christmas tree cupcakes. So I need to make a Rice Krispie treat cone, and then I'm going to pipe green icing on top of that. So to make Rice Krispie treats, which are pretty much the easiest thing to make in the world, you need marshmallows and butter and your Rice Krispie treats, and that's it, folks. Marshmallows, butter, and Rice Krispies. Which I have right here. And I splurged, and I got the holiday Rice Krispies. Alright, so some people do this differently. You can cook the marshmallows and butter in a pan on direct heat. I don't like doing that because it overcooks the sugar and tends to make your Rice Krispies fairly hard. So what you want to do is you want to cook it on an indirect heat. So you take a pot and put water in it, just enough so that the water is not actually touching the bowl that you're using, which you should use glass or metal, and use oven mitts or something to protect your hands from the heat. So you fill the pot with just enough water so that it's not touching the bowl, and you put it at a medium-high heat so that you get a nice boil or simmer. which will create heat on the bowl, and then you continue to mix your marshmallows as they melt. Now, the important thing here is butter or margarine or some sort of fat to help prevent the sugars from recrystallizing or binding in that kind of way, so that you don't get bricks and you get nice chewy Rice Krispie treats. So I'm going to get that set up right now. Alright, so what you're going to need is your metal bowl for your Rice Krispie, for melting your marshmallows. And I like to transfer it to a bigger plastic bowl, which you're not going to be using on the heat, so that you can actually hold the bowl and work the Rice Krispies into your gooey marshmallow. And I need a... Alright, I'm just going to quickly check on my cupcakes here. Safety first, folks. Alright, so you take a toothpick. So mine might be a bit gooier than most people's, but you take a toothpick, stick it into your cupcake, and pull it out. And if it comes out clean, see, mine's not quite done yet. There's stuff there. If it comes out clean, then it's done. If you have a little bit of residue, most importantly, it has to be cake batter residue on your toothpick. It's not quite done yet. It's okay to take your cake out of the oven and then put it back in, so long as you do it quickly. Don't leave it out for like a good 2 minutes. I know a lot of people are scared about their cakes falling, but the cake will hold the temperature, and then it just quickly gets back to temp. Alright. I have to run and go get a pot. I'll be right back. So you want to make sure that your bowl fits on your pot. This might be a bit too big, actually, of a pot, which is okay. Please, just have to quickly wash this one. Thank you. Excuse me. Alright. Another thing to note is when you're doing this, you're going to want to lift your bowl every now and then and make sure that there's still water in the bottom of your pot, because it could boil dry, in which case you're going to start burning your pot. And that's not good, because once you burn a pot, it's more prone to burning after that. So fill it just enough so that your bowl that you're using doesn't touch the water. Alright, perfect. And you want to get that to a medium-high heat and just let it warm up a bit, and then throw, I don't know, a glob of butter in there. It doesn't really matter so long as you have enough butter. The more butter, the better. The fat helps prevent the sugars and the gelatin in the marshmallows from binding too much and creating a crystal, which causes the treat to become crunchy and hard. So it goes from gooey to crunchy and hard. You want somewhere gooey. Now you can use vegan marshmallows for this. They're a little tricky to work with, but you can if you don't want to use regular marshmallows, which have most marshmallows have gelatin in them. And if you're a vegetarian, you know why you don't like that. When you're doing this, I don't recommend using a wooden spoon or anything like that. I recommend a silicone spatula or something of that ilk. I use this one, which is a completely silicone spatula. Using something flat and wide will help you to fold and mix your marshmallows as they melt. And again, safety first when dealing with hot things. I'm just going to let my butter melt here. So my cupcakes will probably take a little bit longer to bake than yours. Okay. I really love doing cooking for any arts and science tournament because judges love to eat things, especially if it's a huge tournament and they're going to be judging for quite a long time. So your best bet with cooking is treats of any kind, because sweeties, everyone loves sweet things. So if you want a easy thing to enter, Rice Krispie treats, seriously, the best. So I just gotta let that warm up. And while I'm letting that warm up, there we go. So I'm just getting a square of wax paper here, and I'm going to roll it into a cone shape. I'm doing that by folding it in half so it's a rectangle. So you're going to use this as your mold for your Rice Krispie treat. A little bit of shape. Just a little bit of tape to hold it in place there, so you have your cone. And then you're going to put your Rice Krispie treats inside here and put it in the fridge to set when you're done. You're also going to want to have a cup or something to hold it so that you can put it in the fridge and it stays upright. Right, so my butter's starting to melt here. And I'm going to take my cupcakes out and check on them again. checking on my cupcakes here. Much better. Alright, so it's come out clean. That's what you want to see. Alright, so I'm going to set this aside. Now, don't try to take them out of the bowl or the pans just yet, because it is really hot. I'm just going to want to set them aside. Let them cool a bit. Get back to your Rice Krispie treats here. Turn off my oven here. Right. So I did about half my bag, and I'm just going to continuously stir this. So the key to indirect heat is constant movement. Because not your entire bowl or not every surface of your marshmallow is going to be touching heat, you want to keep them moving so that they get nice and even heat, and then they're going to start to melt. And it's going to get super, super gooey and kind of stringy, actually. There we go. So I can feel the steam actually on my hand, which is why I'm wearing the oven mitt. So again, you make sure you use something that'll protect your hand from the heat, because you do actually need to hold the bowl, because it will flip and twist and spin on you as you're trying to mix your marshmallows. So I don't know if you can see that. They're getting kind of melty there, which is good. Basically want them to not be marshmallows anymore, so they lose their shape entirely and kind of join together in a one gooey mess. So that's steaming out there. Just gonna turn this down a bit. And keep scraping the sides, because the sides will be cool and your marshmallows will actually start to stick to it. So you want to get as much of your marshmallows into the center of the bowl as you can and just keep mixing it. So they're kind of starting to mix together and blend together, which is really good. That's what I want. So the indirect heat allows you to melt the marshmallows without actually cooking them, which would be what would happen if you actually just put them into the pot with the butter. So I prefer to melt the marshmallows as opposed to cooking them entirely. I mean, you're still cooking them a little bit, but it's not as aggressive. There's still a few little bubbles there of marshmallow. And those will melt down. Just keep stirring it. Alright, we're almost there. Alright, I'm gonna leave that sit for just a second as I get my other bowl ready with my Rice Krispies. Okay, so this is all nice and melted. Easy. Very nice and melted. Okay, so I'm gonna get that a little bit more liquidy, and then I'm gonna add my Rice Krispies. Get it all nice and hot, so it's nice and liquidy. That's working. Alright. And you just pour it into your Rice Krispies. Try and get as much of it as you can. And here comes the really sticky part. Alright, so you're going to want to start mixing this as soon as you get them in there. And just keep mixing until all the Rice Krispies are covered. It's going to start to look kind of like a cobweb. Woo! And that's okay. Kind of what you want. See? It gets all stringy. And that's alright. That's exactly what you want. Just get them all nice and coated. Alright, let's again add a bit more Rice Krispies here. So you're likely going to get messy. Just saying. You're working with sticky marshmallows here. Alright, so you've got your marshmallows all mixed in with your Rice Krispies here. And now you have to actually let it cool and set. So that paper cone that we made earlier, we're going to put some Rice Krispie treats inside of that. And you're going to want to pack it down kind of nice and tight. Don't worry about how much you put in it. Just make sure that you get it all nice. Just gonna use my hands here. You can use a spoon or your hands or whatever you like. Open it up and make it a little easier. Right. I don't want to make my Christmas tree too big, so I'm only going to add a little bit, and then the rest I'm going to set into. Alright. So I'm just kind of forming a cone with the paper here. I'm going to make it nice and tight. So kind of squish it down. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to fix it up with icing. With the icing. Right, so I'm going to stick that in the fridge, and this will help set it quickly. So about 5 minutes in the fridge, and it'll be good to go. Hello. All right. Now the rest of this I'm going to set into a container. So gooey. If you find that your Rice Krispie treats are a bit too gooey, that's probably because you have more marshmallow than Rice Krispie treat. Just try and basically you just want to coat your Rice Krispies in marshmallow and not make it too white. I may have added a bit more marshmallow than Rice Krispie here. So you'll see I have a bit more white gooey marshmallow than I do Rice Krispie treat, and that's alright. It just means it's going to be a bit more chewy than crispy and crunchy, and that's okay. So I'm going to go and check on my cupcakes. Alright, so the pan's still a bit warm, but I can touch it now, which means that I'm going to take these cupcakes out of the pan so that they cool faster. And you want to make sure that you have completely cool cupcakes before you start icing. Otherwise, your cupcakes, your icing will start melting on your cupcakes, and all your pretty and hard work will be for naught. So I just have some cooling wax set up over here. So you want to give them a bit of room. Don't crowd them, and they'll cool down a lot faster. Cupcakes actually cool down quite quickly, but I want to get this on the move, so I'm going to stick one of these in the fridge. I like this one. There we go. I'm just going to wash my hands. I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything like that. Probably not. Nope, no questions? Okay.
Actually, Courtney, I did lie. I do have one question. Are you bringing any of them down with you this weekend?
Actually, I am going to be entering some cooking treats to Yule, so probably.
Ooh.
Speaking of which, everyone should go to Yule. Super fun time.
I was going to say, speaking of a Yule shout-out, in addition to Dragon Master, there's the Crowd Judge Confections competition, and these would be a really great entry.
Repeat that? I couldn't quite catch what you said.
Oh, sorry. I said there's the Crowd Judged Confections competition. Which you can enter any kind of baked good or other food product, and then people get to basically stuff their faces all day and vote.
Quick question. Do you know if there's going to be any food allergies or anything like that? Like anyone with food allergies there?
Yeah, I have a list. Because since I'm doing feast, I've got a list going, but I can type it up and send it to you if you want it.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Also, a side note, I know that's, okay, so for Crown qualifications or any Dragon Master Arts and Science tournament, it is a courtesy to ask your judges if they have any food allergies and then try to accommodate them. However, for entries, you don't actually have to accommodate food allergies if there are some. Judges are supposed to, they're supposed to be able to find somebody who can judge it for you, or they'll substitute out a judge for you. But again, it is a courtesy and it's very, I don't know, it shows the judges that you care and that you can and are willing to go above and beyond, and it might get you brownie points. So I'm
Judges are anonymous. Just list the ingredients.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But again, when you're cooking for arts and science entries and stuff like that, try not to worry too much about food allergies. Just make sure that you put all of your ingredients in, and any substitutions or anything like that that you make. Because that is super important. You can actually, I think you can get disqualified from some tournaments for not having your entries. Anyway, as I was saying earlier, I'm just going to be decorating my Christmas tree with some, what is here? The pull-and peel. You can use any candies or anything like that to decorate them. I'm just going to use this as like garland and maybe some little decorations. I don't know. I just figured I'd get some candy because I like candy. Sorry for all the dead air in here. It's kind of a waiting game for some of this stuff.
You didn't cook everything ahead of time like the cooking shows on TV where they just reach in the oven and go, oh, look, nice, here it is all ready to go.
You know, if I had 25 assistants and like all day to do this, probably would. But you know, I've had a life started back at work again, so that's fun stuff.
Cool.
I'm just gonna check on my phone here. Yeah, it's still a bit soft. I want it to be nice and cool. Alright, let's check on this. Oh goodness. Alright. So I have this weird thing. It's an icing thing. I haven't used it before. I'm gonna try it out, see how it works. To test icing and stuff like that, you can actually do it on parchment paper. That's not. So for the Christmas tree pattern, I'm going to be using a star. The star thing. Ta-da! That'll make like Christmas tree type things. Now, I'm just actually gonna take that off and put it in a Ziploc. Oh, okay. Yay! Let's see if I can find it. So if you don't want to mess around with those contraptions, you can always use, ta-da, a Ziploc bag as a piping bag. Hooray! You just kind of cut the tip and the end off here. Like that. And then you take your, I'm going to be using a piping cap. And you put that in the hole. Make it nice. Kind of like force it in so that it stretches the bag a bit. And that'll help create a nice good seal. And then you just stuff your icing in there. So if it's your first time baking anything, you're going to want to do a test bake. And if you have roommates, trust me, they're going to love you for those. The reason being is because if you need to do any tweaking to your recipe or anything like that, you're going to want to do that before your actual entry for any crown qualifications. Or, you know what, you can just have fun and bake. Just kind of what I'm doing here a little bit. Just kind of use a spoon, scoop it in there. Oh, that one was empty again. All right. Okay. You get it in your bag, and then just gonna take some wax paper here. Put that right there. Right. Put those over here. Show you kind of what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm going to get all the icing as you can and try to avoid air in your bag because that'll make hiccups or bumps. Alright, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to try and show you here. I don't know if you can. So you're just going to be doing that. So you just kind of push down, squeeze, stop squeezing, and pull up. You'll get little rosettes there. So push down so you get a bubble, Squeeze and stop squeezing and pull up. Like that. And it's okay if they're uneven or what have you, because, I mean, let's be honest, pine trees are not the prettiest trees in the world, and they're never perfect unless they're plastic. Cupcake is beautifully cooled. So I'm going to show you how to just plain icing a cupcake without doing the cone thing while this cone sets up still. Let's just do it ready. Alright, so I'm just going to show you how to icing a cupcake, just to plain icing, and just to make it nice and pretty. I'm trying to figure out how to set this up here. Alright. My plate. And if you feel your icing getting too soft, can you guys see that okay? Okay. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to work from the outside inward in a circular motion while putting a constant pressure. So you're going to twist your bag to make a nice closed seal and kind of hold it in the palm of your hand and use this hand to direct and this hand to squeeze. So your dominant hand to squeeze and your off hand to direct. Try to maintain a constant pressure. And just in a circular motion. And then when you get to the middle, push down and stop squeezing and pull up, and you'll get a really nice dollop. Ta-da! Now this is kind of a tight cap for that to be doing that, and also I don't have the proper piping bag, which is excuses, but if you want a really nice big frosting like you see in some of the gourmet cupcake shops and stuff like that, what you're going to want to do is use a bigger hole in your on your piping bag. Not too big, mind you, but something a bit more. Alright, so my cone is firm, so you want to squish it and it doesn't feel warm or squish too easily under the pressure of your hands, but it's kind of chewy, so I like it the way it is. Alright, so I'm just gonna unwrap it here. Oh. Sticky. Alright. So it is very sticky, and that is okay. So here's where you can still form it to make your nice cone shape. I'm just going to use the plate here to make the base nice and even. Alright, so that is a nice and even little Christmas tree. Not quite Christmas tree yet. Alright, so you're going to use a spatula and you're going to take some of the icing that you have. And just kind of sloppily or messily put some frosting on your cupcake. Just a layer. This is going to act like a glue to hold your Christmas tree on to your cupcake. And then you just kind of stick your cone onto your cupcake on top. Like that. And now here comes the hard part. It's not really hard, it's so much as it is daunting and arduous. It's just a long time, that's all. So you're gonna start at the bottom and do those little roselets. And you just kind of go in a circle and follow the cone. Again, don't worry if it looks messy. These are supposed to be pine needles, so. So you put the piping bag right up against, squish, stop squishing, and pull. So you're going to cover the entire cone. And this is what takes a while. You may have to stop and start because it may start melting. It's actually quite warm in here, so. Alright, I'm going to do half of the tree here, just to kind of speed things along, and then I'll turn it around to show you. So it kind of looks like a Christmas tree, right? The reason I chose a chocolate cupcake is so that it looks like a stem of a Christmas tree. I'm just going to quickly icing the rest of this. So you want to work from the bottom and go towards the top so that you get, when the icing kind of melts, it starts melting down onto the bottom. And you get that kind of droopy Christmas tree look. If it starts melting too much, like your apartment or where you're living is warm, you're going to want to stick it in the fridge. Right. Ta-da! My Christmas tree! Woo! Isn't that cute?
It is
Alright.
actually kind of adorable.
And so then this is where you can decorate it. You can use M&Ms or any kind of candy that you like, or you can even use sprinkles. And this is where you start making it look like an actual Christmas tree. So I'm going to use the Twizzlers that I have there and just kind of put it on here. That. Up. And I have some star sprinkles here that I'm going to use. And gently press them onto your cupcake here. Okay. And voila! A tiny Christmas tree. And it's delicious. So, thank you for baking with me, and I hope you guys all enjoy your Christmas trees. I'm going to. Nom nom.
Oh.
It's great.
I'm so glad I waited to stop the broadcast.